Live? Okay, we're live. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. We're live. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Downstage with Bryan Hayden. So, yeah, this weekend was Super Bowl weekend. Normally, there's a big bunch of commercials to be talked about. From a viewer standpoint, there wasn't that many big commercials that I saw outside of, the trailers that we're going to be talking about in a couple of moments, but from a commercial standpoint, it wasn't that many like there was a commercial that that was E-Trader, like E-Trader did their commercial of a baby doing taxes and whatnot, or stocks, wherever the E-Trader does, and they haven't done the baby thing since like maybe 2003, 2004, around that area. So they brought back essentially a character close to 20 years ago into the more common age of like almost like a boss baby type of thing. But otherwise, it just felt like a lot of these commercials were very okay. There wasn't that many like big commercials outside of the trailers that that I'm like accustomed to now, where it's just like, okay, Super Bowl, what type of trailers are coming out for the Super Bowl? All right,
Mhm.
so yeah, there was a bunch of trailers that were released for the Super Bowl. Doctor Strange 2, Lord of the Rings, Jurassic Park Dominion. Uh, what else? A DC spot that was based on the upcoming movies for the year: Black Adam, Flash, Aquaman 2, which was essentially very brief shot. It wasn't like a big thing. It was just basically
Mhm.
brief shots of the characters in place. It's like
Mhm.
nothing really major. You could tell that like they're saving like a bigger thing like down the line.
Mhm.
Like once the Batman comes out in theaters next month, you could probably they'll probably release like the biggest trailer so far, which is probably gonna be Black Adam.
Yeah,
And
and well, there's already actually been a trailer I think that released for
well,
Black Adam, but like it was like more
like
of a
a
I think more of a teaser though.
a theatrical trailer for Black Adam as opposed to
Mhm.
the teaser trailer.
Yeah.
They only have like maybe two teaser trailers right now, and so right when the probably when the Batman drops or around that area, they'll probably release a more theatrical trailer for Black Adam to show
Mhm.
what type of character they're doing and how much of an anti-hero he's going to be for the DCEU. Because they're definitely setting up as like almost like Superman, like an actual darker Superman type of character, as opposed to what Zack Snyder believes Superman is and stuff like that too. Which isn't a riff on Zack Snyder. It's just that Superman isn't a very haunted guy that is conflicted about his actions. He's a very hopeful and optimistic type of person.
Mhm.
Batman is the type of character who's always conflicted about his actions, even if he has to cross the line and do all that stuff. But
And he still gets them wrong.
yeah, but Black Adam seems like the type of person who is willing to cross the line and not feel affected by it because he believes it's probably like it's the right means to that end.
Mhm. Yeah,
Uh,
like I can tell they're definitely gonna go with that angle that like one of the big things with the character, like especially like in Injustice 2, like he wants to protect his city.
yeah,
I'm blanking on the name on it, but like that's a big part of his
I think
character.
it's Kardak or something like that,
Yeah, Kandar, I think.
or
Yeah,
Kardak.
Kandahar. I think that's what it
Yeah,
was. So it's like, yeah, that's I feel like that's gonna be a big part of that movie. And also it's interesting too, is like in the comics in the source material, how Black Adam gets his power is that he basically kills his kid to do it.
yeah.
Because in the comics he is a villain. But since they're making him anti-hero, it looks like they're gonna have some other antagonistic force be the one who kills Black Adam's kid, and then Black Adam's somehow gonna get his powers from maybe
Well,
from that somehow, possibly, or by some other means.
well, if you go by Shazam 2, I mean Shazam, the Black Adam was actually mentioned in Shazam as the champion that Shazam was talking about. How he basically was that champion before Billy Batson, and or rather just with Shazam, Shazam. Ugh, very tongue-tied today. But basically, how before Billy Batson became Shazam, there was another great champion, and they're gonna probably allude to the great champion being Black Adam, and how Black Adam was the one who used his powers for ultimately for his own good and like his own needs and whatnot. And then probably in this one, they probably showed like that own needs was to essentially protect his own country and stuff like that too. And but yeah, they did Black Adam. The Flash only had maybe literally a flash of literally a flash of just Ezra Miller as the Flash about to go into the Speed Force and stuff like that too. Compared
and a new looking suit too.
Yeah, which actually compares to which compares to sort of them modernizing the Flash suit in the DCEU, where it's just it's constantly evolving. Especially with and especially since Barry is now going to becoming a CSI guy. People actually one of my friends, Dylan, he said, "Why does the suit look like a fingerprint?" And it kind of just dawned on me, if Barry is going to be a CSI person now, he might have an idea of creating a suit that basically mirrors a fingerprint. Because if you're in CS, as a forensic science, you're probably doing a lot of fingerprints and stuff like that too. So,
yeah, leaving his identification all over.
Yeah, but the suit looks nice, and I love the fact that they finally gave Barry a wind visor thing on his glasses, whatever it's called. Yeah. I usually just call it the wind visor because technically speaking, it is basically a wind visor.
That's really what it is, yeah.
And the last moment was basically Aquaman, and I think it was just basically Aquaman on his throne, and just Aquaman on his throne or some throne to that effect. And I will say that the water effects look just about the same in Aquaman, but it is hard to essentially make a underwater thing look underwater. It's hard to make an underwater environment look like you could breathe and swim and talk underwater without looking it's computer. So obviously,
I mean, how they communicate, as we definitely saw in the Zack Snyder version, is that it's more telepathic communication when they're underwater. They don't open their mouths.
Yeah,
which makes sense. You wouldn't be opening your mouth to talk underwater because the words just wouldn't form. The only time where they were able to do that is when Mara created some shield or whatever that got rid of the water, and they were just standing around and breathing in air.
Yeah,
and then could actually talk.
Yeah, but I honestly think, but it looks I can't wait to see an actual full trailer for these movies coming out. So
yeah, it's hard to say too because it's Aquaman, you can tell that one is still the most in the works.
Yeah,
there's barely anything that's come out. I think there's been some behind the scenes stuff they've shown, but there's just not a lot to really get a good assessment of right now at all.
But again, outside of trailers, they had the DC's 1 minute clip of movies to come, especially for this year. Jurassic Park Dominion, they released the trailer almost a week and a half ago, literally a week and a half ago, like you said before, or right we were recording about. It's basically the same trailer that's been on the internet for the past almost 2 weeks or so, and anything else, it was nothing really stellar outside Doctor Strange 2, which Marvel.
And I'm almost wondering if this could even be by design as well, because everyone probably knows how crazy Doctor Strange is going to be just from that teaser trailer they did a while back, and just how crazy alone that one looked.
Yeah.
And because everyone knows it's Sam Raimi, and he's going to bring the crazy shots, and there was so much craziness in that trailer that I think whatever trailer could have possibly come out, if someone was let's make the craziest trailer we can make, it still wouldn't come close to Doctor Strange. And I feel like they knew that, and they're okay, yeah, let's just put something out. We know Doctor Strange is gonna get all the attention.
Yeah, and because it's the next Marvel movie coming out. It's gonna be in May. Of close to my birthday or after my birthday. I'm not really sure. So you're, March is, gonna be your Batman month. May is gonna be May is probably gonna be the month for Doctor Strange for me. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm definitely pumped for that movie too now, just from that trailer.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Especially because they kind of get back into kind of talk about one of my things with Marvel, and it's their marketing problem. That was one thing I didn't like about the Spider-Man trailers, was how predictable the movie was from it. I pretty much predicted what I was going to see. With the Doctor Strange trailer, I have so many possible predictions of what could happen, and I like the fact that I don't know what actually could happen. That I don't think any of my predictions are probably going to come true, and I'm just going to be shocked by what's going to happen. It is the what if Doctor Strange going to be the villain, or is this alternate universe Wanda going to show up and be the villain?
Yeah.
Or is Wanda herself going to end up change and become the villain because of her meeting her what if version? And then that line she has where she's talking to Doctor Strange, where it's you break the rules and you get rewarded. I break the rules and then everyone gets upset with me. That's not really fair, is it? And it's I feel like that could even be the perfect setup.
Wonder, you did enslave a town, so
not to mention, I'm pretty sure some of those people had kids.
Yes.
And that was a big point too. The kids just seem to have disappeared. Or I think it was said that they were locked in their rooms. Who was feeding those kids though? Because if the parents were made to forget that they had kids essentially, and not to give them attention more or less.
This is the type of stuff.
Are there dead kids in this town though now? Is Wanda basically responsible for these kids just starving to death?
This is the type of stuff that you now will think of a year after WandaVision, where it's you kind of glosses over all this stuff because Viz is where are the kids, Wanda? And then suddenly it's Halloween and all the kids just suddenly come out of the blue.
Exactly.
But if
also because we have no idea how long that was going on until it got to that because I'm trying to remember because I don't think because it was going on for a while, right? That whole before whatever that agency was found out about it. I think.
Yeah, honestly,
I think there was time in between. It wasn't just it happened one day and then the next day they found out. There was. I think there had to be some time in between. I think.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Wanda directly after Viz's death, Vision's death, she goes to the plot of land that was supposed to be their retirement home and stuff like that too, and then basically erupts into sort of the thing that we saw in Age of Ultron, which is that nuke of emotions, destroying everything, destroying all the Ultron things. But in this case, it's sort of the same thing, but it essentially tapped into the chaos magic that was essentially in her, which it would be nice to see that the chaos magic was already in her in Age of Ultron, but we're probably not gonna do magic. And of course, this being Marvel, down the line, they changed their minds. So the idea of her angst and emotions and essentially her depression over Vision's death going into an entire town and then basically putting that entire town into one big bubble of essentially just trapping them in a her own personal nightmare or something like that for it could have been days, it could have been weeks, but it might have been a couple of days in timeline. I think in timeline wise, it was probably a couple of days, and then the people at the now I'm forgetting the name of that government agency, but the anti-shield. I'll just call them the anti-shield.
Yeah,
they're basically all the anti-shield. They come in, they send in Monica, and then Monica gets trapped in, and then as the days are going by, at least a few days has gone by when Monica comes back out into the real world and stuff like that too. Even though it feels like an episode has just passed because I think that's how the time frame feels like in Westview. But yeah, it definitely feels like there is sort of like a hypocritical like answer for Wanda saying, "Oh, because Doctor Strange changes reality, he gets rewarded, but while she changes reality, she gets ostracized as an enemy." But you know,
yeah, and it's like it's like Wanda, I think, has been kind of getting used to like being reaffirmed by her fellow team members. Like literally, Monica's saying like they'll never know what you sacrificed for them. I don't think they care though. I don't think they care that they were being like held hostage by this witch who like literally forced her depression on everyone else. Like instead of her actually dealing with her mental and emotional traumas, she literally forces it on everyone else like some toxic ex.
Yeah, essentially. But
and I think that's actually going to come up in the Doctor Strange movie because as we see in one of the stills, Doctor Strange gets captured and he's meeting with this council, the Illuminati. I think they're going to be.
Yeah, it's definitely good. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. They're probably gonna, it's probably gonna be like the multiverse. It's probably like the TVA Illuminati or the anti-TVA. If anything, this is probably gonna be like the multiverse Illuminati or thing to combat the TVA because of how essentially Kane. I mean not Kane, Kane, whatever it is called.
Kang.
Kane, thank you. How basically Kang. Is now in control of the TVA and making it into his image, or if this is basically like a pocket dimension where a lot of these other multiverse people can just like sit around and basically relax, just like, hey, things are bad, but it's like we're outside of our own little personal bubble. It's sort of like the same thing they do in What If, where it's like Strange and the Watcher basically allow themselves to create their own little pocket dimensions where things are allowed to be like outside of the timeline, so they can easily be, within that little. So if this is like basically a pocket dimension where Strange could actually be brought up on his own little trousers, then I could easily see the same thing happening to Wander. And them trying to go after Wander and finding out that Wander essentially enslaved an entire town. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
the entire town. Huh?
No, you said sorry. I'm like, no, not. You said sorry. I'm like, all good.
And, slaves an entire town, and then suddenly these people decide to judge Wander over her, actions. So, yeah, I get it. And that might be the reason why Wander is very all bloodied up in the trailer, where it's like there is a shot where her face is all bloodied. It looks like she's back in Westview, especially if she's especially if it's like a
multiverse thing.
Yeah, maybe it is possible that Wanda is talking to a Wanda that actually does live in Westview with Vision. So yeah,
and has her kids too, because that's going to be another big thing for Wanda. Because at the end of WandaVision, this like our universe is Wanda, or the MCU Wanda, I guess we'll call it. Like she was literally with that book, that sacred, damned book, whatever they called it.
The Darkhold.
The Darkhold, yeah. And she's like reading through that book, and then she hears the voice of one of her kids, calling out for her, and then, boom, end of show.
Yeah.
So that could also be a big part of like her motivations to essentially double cross Strange.
Yeah, but
and also another thing I thought of too, because in the comics, one of the members of the Illuminati is Doctor Strange. So maybe the Illuminati will then ask the MCU universe Doctor Strange to join their Illuminati to help them.
Yeah.
And then Wanda will be the one who gets essentially put on more of like this trial kind of thing. And then that brings us back to her line of like her saying, you break the rules, Doctor Strange, and you get rewarded. Like maybe you get put on the council in this movie. Yeah. And then I break the rules and then I'm the one put on trial. After her constantly being reaffirmed by her teammates, her friends, that no, she's okay. It's all fine. You did what you did. We understand.
Now, speaking of Strange, there are essentially other variants of Doctor Strange in this movie. There is Zombie Strange. There is apparently this isn't the Strange Supreme that you see in What If. This is apparently just called Sinister Strange, which is essentially the things just got out of hand Strange, the one that speaks like that.
Okay.
And there is the Kung Fu Strange, where basically it's the guy
Kung Fu Strange.
Yeah, there's a sort of Strange with like essentially darker hair, but with a white stripe around here. He basically has like a kung fu type of thing, like a kung
Oh, is
fu.
that the one where they're at that like kind of mountainy kind of side? There's the Minotaur, all this clouds. Oh, I thought that was actually just regular Strange because it was such a quick shot.
Apparently, that's basically a kung fu Strange or something like that.
Huh. Okay. Interesting.
But yeah,
But also it is possible, like, just the thing that could be the What If Strange, because like as we saw in the What If version, he takes in all these kind of monsters inside of him, and then near the end, we see all these monsters starting to almost come out of Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
So I feel like unless that's just going to be zombie Doctor Strange, just unleashing zombies from his body, I guess. But it's like could be either one of those. Like there's so many possibilities, and not to mention like. Also, I think we glossed over. I think one of the biggest cameos, or not cameos, just one of the biggest appearances that's going to show up. Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier.
Is it Charles Xavier though?
It's going to be a Charles Xavier for sure because you can't because that's the thing. It's Patrick Stewart. Everyone knows Patrick Stewart. You can't just bring Patrick Stewart in and him not be Professor X in some capacity or variation. Like not the one we've seen, probably a different version, of course.
It's not Professor X. It's just got to be Picard. It's just Jean-Luc Picard.
No, don't do that. Just let it be Professor X.
No, it's probably got to be like Professor X, but it's just that like it's got to be like a name like Ralph Boner or something like that.
God, I would literally just go out of the theater. I'm like, no. If this is what you're gonna do, you're gonna do this because if that's what they do, they're gonna do it for the rest of the movie. And I'm like, no, I'm not playing this game again.
But yeah, it is most definitely gonna be either Professor X that we probably seen and know and love, or it is gonna be a variant of Professor X that is probably even linked to like another reality that actually holds like the X-Men accountable and stuff like that too, where it actually feels like these are actual X people and stuff like that too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could easily see like if that Council of Illuminati is probably, and apparently going by the Ultron bots that we see that are essentially,
or are they even Ultron bots?
Well, they have the appearance of Ultron bots, but they're Ultron-like.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely an idea of okay, Strange is being led into a world that he does not really realize because of his actions. In No Way Home, and that's another thing is like how much of No Way Home is going to be affected with Strange because Wong even told him in No Way Home it's like don't do anything stupid, and Strange was like I won't do anything stupid.
Well, actually, well, that's the thing though. Like that was just they just did that for the trailer to get a little laugh essentially, because in the actual movie. Wong basically is just like he more or less gives his blessing, which is sort of a like, look, just be careful, don't screw this all up, okay?
Yeah.
So because he's like, because he knows Strange is gonna do it anyway. Like he knows he can't stop Strange. But it's like especially because like as we see in No Way Home, where it's like literally the universe starts rupturing near the end.
Yeah.
And it's like all these villains from other Spider-Man universes start showing up almost. Like they're just waiting to come through, and Doctor Strange is trying to hold it in until he eventually does fix it.
Yeah, so it definitely feels like that the line from Wander is probably going to be very prominent with that, where it's just like, okay, maybe he is going to be rewarded because he definitely almost broke the universe, but he also repaired the universe in a way that, that didn't let the universe entirely, explode.
Mm-hmm. Also, it's like, just look at the body count too. Like, it was so much smaller compared to what Wanda was doing. Even though, yes, Wanda didn't inherently kill anybody, she also tortured people for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's, that like we don't know if she's actually doing something to actually learn how to control her powers.
The one character though that I am ready to see in this thing is America Chavez. Because I'm always heard about how America Chavez is basically a dimensional traveler from her own little universe, and basically how she was like a princess there, and then her family got killed, and then she basically transported herself into the Marvel universe just to escape, and then so I can't wait to see what her story brings into the table, especially if we're going into the multiverse. But also, this is Sam Raimi. How much of Sam Raimi's ideas that he had for Spider-Man 4 could come into play? Because obviously enough, he could finally have Bruce Campbell appear as maybe as Ash, and maybe not.
Or maybe as Mysterio, as like he was also gonna.
Yeah, like as a variant of Mysterio, where it's just like Bruce Campbell and Mysterio. But I honestly, and there's that shot of Benedict of Doctor Strange like going into like cubes of whatever is happening to his face.
Yeah,
like this is peak Sam Raimi. This is what I'm missing from a Sam Raimi film, where it's just like whatever's happening to Strange and whatever's happening to Wanda, and whatever force is really at play. I can't wait to see what type of villain is that. Is it Kane? Is it Crane?
Kang.
Kang. Is it Kang the Conqueror doing all this just to be for funsies? Is the Illuminati doing this? Is it Wanda doing this? Is it someone else at play? Knowing Marvel, it could be someone else's play that could actually tie into the next Avengers a threat thing.
Probably so, yeah.
It could be Kang, but I feel like Kang might be a threat.
Well, they're also saving him though, because I think they're saving him for Quantumania.
Yeah, it might be a Quantumania type of thing, but yeah, it definitely feels like something is at play, but we don't know what who is at play, and obviously whatever is at play, it's obviously trying to paint Doctor Strange as the hero and Wanda as a villain, even though Wanda is a villain in her own right because of what happened with WandaVision.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely can't see. I mean, I definitely can't wait to see what Sam Raimi has cooked up with Doctor Strange too.
And it's like just quickly too, it's like one of the I think cameos that we might see is like we were referring to with those Ultron like robots that are like walking Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
So I saw some rumors kind of going around that, or not rumors, just some theories really, I should say, some theories going around that it's going to be Superior Iron Man played by Tom Cruise. And honestly, that would be amazing because Tom Cruise would actually be pretty good as like a variant of Tony Stark.
And he was actually gonna be Tony Stark in the first Iron Man, but they Paramount just decided I forgot it was I think it was probably Jon Favreau who just didn't want him to be Tony Stark and wanted someone else to be and was really pushing for Robert Downey Jr. But Tom Cruise as Superior Iron Man, that might be as amazing because according to my friends who are very big comic people, Superior Iron Man is basically evil Tony Stark. So, and if you want someone to play evil Tony Stark, you would need someone who is just as affable as Robert Downey Jr., but who would be an amazing villain to watch. And if you do watch Tom Cruise as a villain, he is amazing to watch because you just forget, oh, this is Tom Cruise. Collateral. I always bring up Collateral, but if you do want to watch a movie where Tom Cruise plays an excellent villain, Collateral.
That is one of his best movies by far.
Oh yeah. And he just plays a role with the same nuance and affable nature you just see in a regular Tom Cruise movie, But yeah, if Tom Cruise gets, in all honesty, there's a lot of stuff we don't know about multiverse of madness, but I love how they are keeping some things at bay, but they're also letting us know a few things beforehand. The moment I heard Sir Patrick Stewart's voice, I was like, "Oh, you gotta be kidding me! This is gonna be great."
Oh yeah.
But
yeah, it's basically to quote Doctor Strange. What we know about the multiverse is frighteningly little.
Yes.
That really does kind of sum up what we are going to know about this movie before going into it, because I feel like they're going to be so good about keeping so much information very close to the chest on this one, and only release just enough to whet the appetite.
All right, and from excellent trailers to a middle ground meh trailer. Hayden, you should probably talk about this, but the Lord of the Rings first power.
The Ring of Power.
Ring of Power series. So yeah, Take it away, Hayden.
So yeah, so they released a 1-minute teaser for Amazon's Lord of the Rings show, The Ring of Power, and it's set like thousands of years before The Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings movies, and it's very meh. Like, there's not a lot to take from it at the moment because it's just like, well, also because like they're going into a time period where there's like literally what amounts to thousands of years of lore and possibilities, and they're having to condense it all down for the show.
Yeah.
And like, this is a tricky one because it's become one of those things where if you say you don't like it, you're immediately called racist, sexist. But then if you do immediately like it, you're like, oh, you're woke SJW. And it's like, weirdly enough, there are some truths in both.
Yeah.
Because you can tell they're trying to be more diverse just for the sake of diversity, really. Because it doesn't look like they're actually trying to do anything with it that's actually nuanced. At least just from what I've gathered from information that Amazon themselves have also said in, I think it was a Vanity Fair interview. Or, like a Vanity Fair article. Where they're literally talking about how they want to mold the show based off of our modern day. And it's like, no, that actually doesn't work because it's a fictional world.
Yeah.
That's like, that doesn't make any sense. It's a fictional world. Also because the Tolkien lore is so rich. There's already so much there. Just work with that. He literally gave you the blueprints. Why are you trying to shred blueprints? Like they literally used the blueprints for Lord of the Rings movies, and look how successful those were. Hobbits were still technically successful, even though they definitely weren't as good.
Yeah,
like the blueprints are there. Just work with what he gave you.
It's sort of like the same problem that they had with Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, when they had essentially the blueprint to at least 5 books or 6 books, like basically 5.5 books with the whatever they had with they were getting from George R. R. Martin's like pages of like this is what's going to be happening in this book, and so they could work with that. But when you do have like a rich lore, like literally people within that community actually bring out and say, hey, this is what happened, this is the history of before Shanron, and this is the history that after Shanron, and this is the history that happened after Shanron's defeat. Like, you could easily work with that, but when they, and I could easily see them trying to say, okay, we want to do this as their own, as its own thing, and that's fine. You easily do it as its own thing. Have it not tied to the movies, have it just tied to the book in general. But there are a lot of people, a lot of fans of say, hey, we want to, who are probably tied more to the books. I mean, tied more to the movies than they are with the books, even though the books, even though the books and movies, fairly different a lot. Fairly, books and movies are probably night and day between each other.
And also, it's like one of the big things. It's like you don't need to play to diversity because there's already diversity within the lore. It's already there. You just actually have to, read the material to know it's there, and you actually have to understand that. And literally one of the big things too, because it's like Lord of the Rings. It's like all the races coming together to work to stop the bad guys.
Yeah.
So it's like you can easily do something like that in the in this Ring of Power series before the ring got made, and then also be able to work around showing how everything kind of got corrupted. How Sauron created that Ring of Power and took over, or started taking over and launched his war. It's like it's so clear that they're just doing it for the sake of just looking diverse instead of actually using the material and the diversity already written into the material. With all the different races and so what and some tongue-tied.
I know.
It's like they're just trying to do diversity for the sake of diversity without clearly actually understanding material they have before them. Like they literally fired a a Lord of the Rings scholar, essentially, a Tolkien scholar, because technically, because I guess he went on some unsanctioned interview. But it's like I feel like it was also probably because like what Amazon wanted to do was actually very different from the lore. Because the writers they brought in were like, yeah, we're gonna tailor ourselves to what Amazon wants to do.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem is that Amazon really just wants to ride on the coattails of, oh, there is no big fantasy thing where, you know, Game of Thrones just ended like a couple of years ago. So there's like this whole filling of a hole of essentially no Game of Thrones, no anything else. There was a new Game of Thrones series, but they have yet to really release a trailer for that, and that's probably coming out probably at the back end of this year, maybe early next year, probably between that little time frame. So here, I like the fact that aside from the last moment of the opening, that they did the opening by hand. So I do like that fact.
Yeah.
It's all by hand. It's all by Welling, Iron Smith and stuff like that too.
Like that was awesome.
Yeah, but I could easily see, I can easily understand that the reason why people are upset, and rightfully so, is that they're basically changing the lore around just to fit essentially a TV show. Which that
well, not just a TV show. This vision that like the studio has for it that doesn't actually match up with the material in the first place, and it's like you guys literally had the easiest job in the world. Let the material tell the story for you, but now you're trying to you're trying to alter that material because you're trying to like tell messages when it's like you don't need to try and tell a message. The material is already there to tell the message for you. Don't try to create a message that's already going to make your job even more difficult, and then it's just going to become very obvious to everyone watching what you're doing.
Yeah,
it's basically like if you're just trying to throw in diversity for the sake of diversity, it's just because people have gotten used to accepting the bare minimum. So that's what they do. They just throw in diversity for the sake of diversity, and then they're like, okay, job is done. Now we don't have to actually put in the work to actually tell a nuanced characters for these diverse characters we put in.
And on that note, I think it probably falls into the next trailer that kind of came out today, which is the Chip and Dale movie, or original movie. And yeah, this is sort of like the same thing that we were talking about before, where it's just basically Disney kind of like using its own like IPs and stuff like that too, to basically say, hey, we have these characters, we're not gonna just tell a story, we just gotta do a story that's sort of like the same, and like this is literally the same plot, like the plot where it's like, oh, the Chip and Dales are actual people, they were just doing a show and stuff like that too, where it's just like like you just said before, you have the blueprints. And the thing, it's not hard to make Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers to be literally a rescue, the Rescue Rangers. Have 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 them like go into jungles and look for stuff. You could easily make that into a good show. I mean, or a new movie like that. But now,
I mean, literally one of the scenes, it's like they throw an Indiana Jones reference.
well, that's because I forgot who it is. It's either Chip or Dale. No, I think it's Chip, because Chip wears the exact same clothes in the show. So yeah, it's.
But exactly, that's to your point though. It's like they already threw that reference in too. It's like exactly they could have just gone on an adventure in a jungle, and here's someone who goes on adventures in jungles.
Yeah,
more or less.
I mean, Chip and Dale is not a hard show to make into a movie. You just have to figure out, okay, yes, that that they a mouse flies a ship, yes, and there are two chipmunks, and the other, they have another. I forgot what. I'm not sure those two, but yeah, they have two mouse. I think they're two mice. I'm not sure, but they have two mice that fix their ship. They fly a ship that basically should not be a ship. I mean, not ship. They should not be a plane that looks like a ship. But yeah, it's an easy formula.
Mm-hmm.
And compare that to the Lord of the Rings, where it's just like you have the formula, you have the blueprints, and use them. But they obviously don't want to do that because they want to, cater to more modern audiences, because modern audiences probably don't want to watch a show that's like essentially based off of a big product.
Well, that's also just like, I mean, I think that's also just like them not even understanding the audiences.
Yeah.
Because they'll watch it. I mean, like seriously, how many people love Lord of the Rings? Like seriously, like they don't have to try and like cater to other audiences. Like all you need to do is actually just create good content that people will like and enjoy, and then they'll talk about it to all their friends and tell them to watch it, and then they'll probably watch it, and then so on and so on, and then boom, there you go.
Which leads me to the next argument, or not argument, the next topic, which is essentially streaming services. Uh, like I was saying before we started, that a lot of these streaming services are just trying to one up each other.
Mm-hmm.
Netflix, like one of the biggest news with Netflix was that they're actually taking off the Marvel Netflix series that have been mainstays on their, I'm about to say account, on their site for essentially its inception.
It's since like
Before,
2015.
yeah, since 2015. Like that's when Netflix became like the juggernaut that has been like the thing. But over the past few years, Netflix really hasn't been, like, aside from maybe The Witcher and Stranger Things and like Squid Game and stuff like that too. Well, Squid Game is a show that was produced internationally.
Yeah,
And
yeah, Squid Game I think happened because wasn't Squid Game on like because it was in like South Korea, and I think it wasn't originally already out there, and then
no,
eventually
no,
Netflix picked it up, or am I?
no, no, no. But those are like other shows that they do that too. So they have a big thing, internationally. But
Mhm.
Squid Game was a big international production that Netflix just picked up. So
Mhm.
because like not many people wanted to do this thing, and Netflix was like, yeah, you know what, yeah, all right, we'll do it.
Yeah, it's like I feel like Netflix has also kind of realized that it's like they clearly can't come up with original stuff on their own. So
So
they'll basically poach other content, other original content, and then make it within their own. But
yeah,
I think they still do at least give the creators the creative liberties to create. So at least there's that.
with The Witcher, that's a whole different thing by itself, because The Witcher is basically a whole lore of thing, and we
Mhm.
could easily just say like why Henry Cavill carries like a Witcher Bible on set just to make sure everything is going, fluently and strongly, you
Mhm.
know.
Because Henry Cavill is a gem among humans.
Oh yes, but as of right now, is like, and they also announced that today they're going to be doing Bioshock movie. And I like Bioshock. I have yet to really play the other games. I only played Bioshock Infinite because
Mhm.
it has, Troy Baker, and I'm like, oh, this was a time where I really liked Troy Baker, and I still love Troy Baker, but I'm like, now I'm like, there are other voice actors not like Troy Baker, so I'm like, I've grown to learn other voice actors and stuff like that too. So there are other voice actors that are not Troy Baker, but yeah, but it was during that time where it was during like Troy Baker's like prime voice acting, like prime voice acting like thing, and
Mhm.
I liked the story of Bioshock Infinite. But I never really gotten the other two games because one, I think just because I never picked them up on the 360, or they may have
Mhm.
been like price, it may have been like very not, yeah, pricey to get, because on the 360, because a lot of these Xbox games, they were very pricey
Mhm.
as opposed to the PS3 or PS2, PlayStation games. But nowadays, I probably, if I do want to play the Bioshock series, I could easily get the I think it's called the Bioshock Definitive Collection, where it's just basically all
Mhm.
the games.
Yeah,
Yeah, or
or something like
Bioshock.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, where it's just like it's basically a package deal, and you just basically play Bioshock 1, 2, and then Infinite, and then the Burial at Sea DLC that's part of Infinite and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
And but I remember Bioshock coming out being like, oh, this will be a great movie to see. Like who would direct the movie, and then and like any other video game movie that came out like in the past decade or so, is like no one really wants to do a video game movie. But and I mean,
also because barely anyone can even do video game movies the right way in the first place.
Yeah, and I do have low expectations because one, this is Netflix, and whenever Netflix does a production that isn't like a high fantasy type of thing, you know, the Death Note movie that came out like what was it, a few years ago? Yeah, a few years ago. It was, all right. I'm not really a big fan of the thing because I really didn't watch it, because now I probably have time to actually watch it and stuff like that too. And it'd be like I watched the Avatar, the Last Airbender cartoon last year, and I don't even have to watch the Avatar, the Last Airbender movie to know how night and day that film is. I mean that product is.
Oh yeah.
So the same thing with Dragon Ball Z. I grew up watching Dragon Ball Z, and then they have Dragon Ball Evolution. It's like that's very day and day a production. So as of right now, even though they just announced it, I have limited expectations with Bioshock, but I do want it to be good because Netflix needs to have some big thing to keep people going. But and it leads me to another thing, especially with them like doing away with the Marvel Netflix things. These were essentially flagship shows on Netflix, and now at the end of this month, by March 1st, there will be no more Daredevil to watch. There'll be no more Punisher, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, Defenders. And the sad thing was, like, after No Way Home, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna rewatch all these shows because it, especially with Hawkeye, with bringing back friggin'
the Kingpin.
Yeah, Kingpin of all people. Because that's definitely one of those things that I do want to like go back and rewatch all these shows. But now it's like, how can I watch all these like shows in the span of like say a couple of weeks when
like you have to basically just kind of pick one and just like try and do it as quick as you can.
Yeah, I mean it'll be and another thing is like a lot and this is another thing about Netflix I really don't like is that recently a lot of their shows have been over like an hour sometimes. Like close to 50 minutes, 55 minutes, and I only have a attention span for maybe 45 minutes at a time, maybe 40 minutes. Like if it's like over 50 minutes, I know that's like the season finale, but a lot of these shows now are like over an hour long, and 55 minutes long, an hour, hour long. It's like to binge watch a show that's like maybe 8 episodes, 10 episodes, 13 episodes, and find out they're like closer to an hour long. That's like a weekend for me because, or I don't have the same exact binge watching ability that I have that I did previously. Whereas it's like, oh, new show come out, I'm like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah,
it's like
like especially with the amount of content that's out too. It's like there's only a few shows where they'll be like it'll really grab my attention so much that I will want to just like only focus on watching that. Like Daredevil was one of them. Sons of Anarchy was one of them. And during the last like couple of seasons, like 2 seasons of Sons of Anarchy, some of their episodes are going like hour and a half long. Because FX really gave Kurt Sutter like almost seemingly a blank check almost to do what he wants with the show because it was raking in the views and the money. And it's like there's only a few shows where you can really do that with and be able to hold the audience's attention. Because it's for a lot of other shows I'll watch, I'll just multitask. Like, I'll play a game on my phone and then watch, or I'll like try to write on my laptop and then watch at the same time.
Like American Horror Story when it was on FX, like in the past few years or so, have been like over an hour and 20-minute episodes, maybe, because they're obviously with commercials and stuff like that too. But sometimes they would have like limited commercials, and they would like literally show an episode that feels like 50 minutes, like go on like 50 minutes, and then go for commercial and stuff like that too. So yeah, it definitely feels like nowadays, especially with Netflix, they have so many options to do, and now a lot of these shows are now going like an hour almost like an hour length, and sometimes a lot of these shows, they have a lot more talking now. It's like, yeah, I have no problem with people doing talking stuff, but yeah, it's like, when you take away the flagship shows that basically help Netflix, especially with Daredevil, especially a show like Daredevil,
Yeah.
where do they go next? Do they go to Disney Plus and be like the first shows on Disney Plus to be like M-rated and stuff like that too? No, of course not. Well, internationally they do have Disney Plus Star or Disney Store or something like that, where just basically Hulu internationally. I think that's what it's basically called. Star Plus is basically their version of Hulu internationally. But as I was thinking, Disney practically owns Hulu. So what I was thinking, what would be a major flex to Disney by just putting the old Netflix Marvel shows on Hulu, and then over time, if there's a lot of people who are going to watch things on Hulu, especially if you do want to watch something on Hulu, there are shows on Hulu, but there aren't like many flagship shows that are like, ones that are like, there are flagship shows, but there are like a lot of comedy shows that are like getting more and more attention. There's no flagship shows that.
Yeah, like its only flagship show that I immediately remember is Handmaid's Tale. That's the only one from Hulu that I immediately remember, because the thing about Hulu is that it's really more for all the access to all the other kind of TV shows that have come out in syndication that you can now get on Hulu. Like a lot of shows that'll come out with an episode and then you can just get it the next day on Hulu.
Yeah. Or wait until after midnight or something like that. Then it's like on Hulu.
Yeah,
it's
like Hulu has rarely been used for content that is its own inherent content, more or less.
Yeah, so so having these Netflix shows, if they do go to Hulu, and suddenly Hulu decides to actually bring these shows back to normal, back into syndication, especially.
Start producing more seasons, like maybe a Daredevil season 4, a Jessica Jones season 4, a Luke Cage season 3, and Iron Fist season 3. God, I don't even want to think about that possibility, because that's definitely the weakest of them all.
But at least, with Iron Fist, they could easily have another. They were starting to become a little more better in the fighting stuff and stuff like that too. So it's sort of
they also realized that it's like their first season. They realized, we don't know what the hell we're doing with this story here. So let's actually condense the number of episodes and actually keep the story actually more streamlined and focused this time around for our second season. And it did get better, but it's still one of those hit or miss kind of shows out of all the Marvel ones, for sure.
Or you could easily just do, with Luke Cage and Danny Rand, you could easily just do Heroes for Hire and have those like characters just have like essentially a Heroes for Hire show. And,
that would be great.
Daredevil works alone, Daredevil and Jessica Jones work alone because that's their characters. But Danny and Luke could easily just become a dual show, just into one. You could just combine their shows into one show and just call it Heroes for Hire, and have Danny, Luke, Colleen, and Misty just essentially in the same show together. Just this week some bank is being harassed by some money launderer or something like that, and that's their thing of the week, and they have to figure out, this money launderer is actually a old enemy of Luke Cage that we'd never seen before, but now he's like kind of like there again. So it was like, so yeah,
especially because you can tell they had a lot of ideas for season 3 of Luke Cage, but due to the creative differences, they had to can the third season, so that they could start pulling back from everything they had then, and then start bringing that into Heroes for Hire, and then whatever ideas they probably had for maybe a third season of Iron Fist, they can then pull that into here and mix it into one thing.
And if you really wanted to do more with Heroes for Hire, just have guest stars, where it's just like.
Like Jessica Jones could show up to help find some leads for something, or maybe they need a lawyer. Boom, Matt Murdock shows up and represents them in court.
Yeah, it definitely feels like Heroes for Hire will be the logical next step if you wanted to bring back Luke Cage and Iron Fist and not worry about having them in their own show because one, both of them work so well together.
Oh,
especially when Danny was on Luke Cage season 2, where it's just like it was like he was just treated more as a character than on his own show, oddly enough.
Exactly.
But like he actually felt like an actual character. But then like again, not to rip on on those characters, but yeah, if
we're ripping because we care about the characters and we want those characters to be taken in more fulfilling directions for their characters.
And of course, this leads me to the biggest question: where does Frank Castle, pick up? Is like, do they just do Frank as like a season 3 of Punisher and have him like come back and like, if they do a season 3 of Punisher, I would love them to actually tackle the whole people using the Punisher logo as their own logo thing, and have them actually.
No, that would be amazing. Like you see, like a rogue group of cops. Like just taking Punisher's logo and acting like they're the Punisher, and then that brings him back into New York, and then he has to spend his time fighting them and proving to them why they're not supposed to use it in the first place.
It's sort of like because Magnum Force, Dirty Harry, Magnum Force, they basically did the same plot line of rogue cops, basically performing vigilantism. And you do the same thing with today with Punisher and the whole people using his logo as like saying whatnot, and bring the whole bring that whole idea of what is vigilantism, what's the Punisher doing, people who use the Punisher's ideology in a very warped way. That's an excellent season 3. Just and that's an excellent way to actually just bring back Frank Castle, not only as a character but also as a series.
Absolutely.
And then if you really want to do it, just like just have like other episodes where he's just like, you want to see the Punisher. This is the Punisher, like, and he goes after the Bushwhacker or the Ganucci family or something like that. Like really slow into the whole comic aspect of like the Punisher, because these cops or what have you, they decide to call out, they decide to call in like criminals to try and take out the Punisher. So they call in Russian, or they call in like other hitmen to try and kill Frank Castle.
Yeah.
Have fun with that idea, because there are people in this world who use the Frank Castle ideology of the logo really, and think Punisher would always be like the guy who would be like the back to blue or something like that, and especially if they want to have like a more adult related show that actually does like adult themes, especially with the Punisher, go with that.
Yeah, like that's the perfect person to do it with, or perfect character, I should say.
Daredevil, if it goes with Hulu, obviously they would have to do the whole thing without Wilson Fisk, but Daredevil has a lot of other enemies that isn't Wilson Fisk that could easily become like the next Wilson Fisk with them. So yeah,
absolutely. I mean, especially where they ended Wilson Fisk too in the Hawkeye series.
Yeah, and obviously Wilson Fisk will probably be a major antagonist for Echo. So yeah, like as you said before, Kevin Feige could easily just put his foot down and it's like, no, I don't want these on Hulu, and just like lock it away. And it just brings up another point, is that Netflix really doesn't bring out their stuff on DVD unless it's like a Criterion thing, or if it's like a special edition DVD. That's like, they don't really bring out their stuff on DVD. So yeah, it's like, if it's gone on Netflix, it's literally gone forever unless someone decides to download everything and just decides to put it on like MySpace or whatever. But yeah, it definitely feels like there's a lot of hesitance, but also I can't. It's definitely one of those things where I do want to wait and see what happens. I know we've gone long enough talking about that, but I do want to end on a. Well, I will say on a sad note, but unfortunately, we did lose another legend in the comedy field of Ivan Reitman, who directed Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters 2, Twins, Kindergarten Cop. many other great comedic movies. He was also producer on like Animal House. Practically every, like, if it was a big major comedy in the 80s, especially the 70s and 80s, he probably had his hand already in it as either as a producer, executive producer, or even director, or even a writer.
Mm-hmm. Like, you probably watched a movie that Ivan Reitman has been involved in without realizing he was involved in it, probably.
Yeah, I feel like he also did in National Lampoon's Vacation. I might be wrong. Hang on for a second. But yeah, do you have any do you have any memories of like what was your first Reitman production, or was it just like, yeah, or do you have any memories of what like type of like movies you remember of him, like you just said before, it was like it may have been like a major movie, like comedy movie, like maybe like a Ghostbusters or a Kindergarten Cop, or was it just like something like you just said before, is like you just kind of like remember, yeah, it's like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think my first one was definitely Kindergarten Cop, and then later on Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, yeah, like he is good. Like he knows what he's doing for sure. Or well, he knew what he was doing. I should probably say.
Yeah.
And I want to say he also, I think, directed either he directed or he was involved in Ghostbusters Afterlife. Like I think that was probably the last one he was involved with that has come out. I
He
think
produced it.
he produced it. Yeah, so like
Yeah.
that was like, I think that was like one of the last ones he was involved in before his passing. Although maybe he was already working on something else, probably.
No
So
problem. He actually produced Space Jam. That's actually something amazing to know. He actually produced the first he actually produced his first Space Jam. But yeah, the last movie he did, the final film project, was Ghostbusters Afterlife. He also produced it, but he also helped motion capture the role of Hal Ramis in the movie, where it's just like, not, well, obviously big spoiler, but it's been out for the past few months now. But in the end, Egon Spengler comes back as a spirit and does help the Ghostbusters like save the day. And it's weird to watch it because, one, it's a image of Hal Ramis' face on like computer things, and it looks very lifelike. It looks like it actually feels like him actually on screen. But knowing that he was also the guy who was on set as like the thing, it actually feels like almost like full circle with the character, or well, not the character, but on the concept of Ghostbusters. Because as I said, Ghostbusters like literally was like one of the big comedy movies I watched as a kid. It was probably more Ghostbusters 2, because Ghostbusters 2 does need more love than it does, everything else. But like you said before, it was probably a mixture of Ghostbusters 2 and Kindergarten Cop, Twins.
Space Jam, he was also producer for that.
Yeah. So you have these like, especially those three movies, and well, Space Jam as well. And yeah, it definitely feels like Reitman was not only a major figure in filmmaking history, but also a major figure in comedic history, especially where it's like a lot of my comedic elements is brought back because of all the comedy movies I've watched over the years, because I'm just so used to watching those type of movies, and it is sad that we did lose a legend. So yeah, but yeah, it's a little hard for me to talk about that, because it's like I don't know the guy, but he did like shape my childhood. So it's like finding out like one of your childhood heroes has passed away. So it's like it's very hard, and it's obviously people grow old, people will unfortunately pass away, but their legacy and lineage will live on because of their contributions that they made to society. And what better way with Reitman, whereas like his contribution to society was essentially creating essentially not only a fantastic comedic, a sci-fi comedy, supernatural film series like Ghostbusters, but also creating a movie where Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito were twin brothers. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito were scientists, and Arnold Schwarzenegger becomes pregnant. You know, or Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that's another thing. It's like he is synonymous. We're working with Schwarzenegger. He had like 3 movies with him.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I think Bill Murray too.
Yeah, Bill Murray as well. So yeah, it definitely feels like, as his contributions to filmmaking is like it's amazing, especially when you look over his like not only credits as a producer, but also as a executive producer, maybe as a story writer, person who writes as a screenwriter. So yeah, it definitely feels like a lot of it is like as my childhood. It's like finding out that when the childhood heroes was just like gone. So it's just like it's hard to describe because, as I just said before, a lot of my childhood comedy movies were synonymous with those essentially those 4 movies. Where it's just like Ghostbusters, Twins, Kindergarten Cop, Space Jam, stuff like that too. Is there was like, yeah. Anyway, I'm rambling on. As I said before, it's hard to talk about when a childhood hero passes on. But as long as like I said before, his legacy will carry on through the lineage. Because I know his son Jason is a fantastic director in his own right, and especially as a screenwriter too. But Ivan Reitman's contributions to society, especially with his movies, will always live on because there would never be another movie like Ghostbusters or Kindergarten Cop or what have you. So yeah, but yeah. Anyway, I'm rambling on. As I said, that's the end of the episode. I'm sorry if it ended on a very downer note, but I wanted to at least give out a nice little moralization to Mr. Reitman, who basically shaped our childhoods. Even if you don't know that was the type of movie that you should be watching when you were a kid, like because when you are like rewatching movies that are like made for families and stuff like that too, like Kindergarten Cop is a very heavy film to watch, especially as an adult, because it has like themes of child abuse, child endangerment, psychotic type of fathers who's trying to stuff like teen partying and all that stuff, and then and then as a kid you probably don't notice. It's like, oh yeah, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger being the big hero, and then you're watching it as a full on adult, like, good lord, that's a lot of friggin' things you didn't notice it now. But if there's one thing I couldn't say, is God bless the 90s for being so blasé about some of these things. Because you could have like a lot of stuff in a very kids movie and no one would have batted an eye about it.
Yeah.
Well, the same thing about the age too, but the less said about that, the better. All right. That's the end of the episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. I know we went a little longer this week, but we had to talk about Doctor Strange and a lot of this stuff about streaming sites and stuff like that too. So I hope you all enjoy it. I hope you all enjoyed the episode. Hayden, you have any other like closing remarks or something?
Everyone stay safe, drive the speed limit, have a good day.
It's a good way to say it. And everybody else, just take care, be well, and be safe.